Hey guys, what's going on? Shah here, and today we're going to be taking a look at another how to tank boss guide. Today we're going to be looking at Hakkar the Soulflayer. This is one that was requested on my last video. We looked at a boss in Sanguine Depths, which was my first boss tank guide or kind of strategy video. Now I'm going to be trying to go through the rest. Some of you guys left some comments on my last video asking mostly bosses in the other side, but there's a few other ones which I'll definitely be covering and prioritizing going forward. But today we're going to be looking at Hakkar, specifically how you should tank him, positioning, the abilities you should be looking out for, as well as kind of how the boss works. Because Hakkar's an interesting boss where you either have to burst him down very fast, or it's just a really long fight that you have to kind of go through the motions of, you know, breaking through blood barriers and then controlling adds, and then going back into another blood barrier. So that's like the biggest thing about this fight. So I'm going to be going over all of that today from my Guardian Druid point of view. Eventually when I'm doing these videos, I might be like talking over like different tank classes because I'm starting to get some of my alts up. So that'll be kind of exciting, I guess. But for now, let's just jump into Hakkar the Soulflayer. What's cool about the other side is it's a dungeon that essentially there's two paths through it. You can either go into Ardenweld first, or you can go to Hakkar first. I mean, in theory, you could go to Mana Storms first, but that would be like the most wonky route. The general strategy is to clear a decent amount of like the ring where the last boss spawns, Musala, and then you can back pull into Hakkar, get a perfectly good Prideful right before Hakkar, and then you can obviously go into Hakkar, and then this will give you Pridefuls the rest of the way through the dungeon for every boss, which is I recommend doing. It's extremely beneficial to get some of these bosses down extremely fast. This video is going to be in an 18 the other side on a 4 to 5 week, so the boss fight's going to be pretty quick. But I didn't want this video to be super long. There's just a few core mechanics you need to kind of focus on. So what we're doing here is we're killing a Prideful before Hakkar, and then we are heading to his room. We didn't kill Prideful as close as we probably should have, but it's because where Storming was positioned before, like we kind of back pulled out a little bit. But so at the start of as soon as you come into the room, Hakkar is like on these little stairs here next to his little alcove. You can in theory tank him in this alcove, and it's really good if you have an all range group. You have to always keep in mind your composition, because if you have a lot of melee, you have to keep him in a spot where melee won't cleave each other with corrupted blood. Corrupted blood doesn't do any damage unless you're inside the circle, so you just need to be aware of that. So if you have a very heavy melee group, or if you have a melee healer, you need to just be aware of that. So how we're going to tank this boss, or how I like to tank this boss, is typically we're going to keep him right where he spawns, and this is because the adds, if we back up just a few seconds here, when the adds spawn, they actually are physically running up these stairs. So here you'll see there's the stairs on either side. The adds actually come up from here. So if you keep them at the entrance, ground abilities like a Shaman's Earthquake or like a Hunter's Wild Spirits are going to get more uptime if it's positioned properly here, and the adds can start dying quicker. Plus, for some reason, I would say it's kind of a bug, but these adds typically, like when they come up, they fixate. They don't always go on the tank. They don't have really like an aggro table. But if the tank is the first thing they see, sometimes they'll actually just jump right into the tank, so your melee won't even get melee at all. So Wild Spirits is going to go down here. So whenever the adds, like as soon as they come up and hit here, like they're already taking like a lot of damage from this ability. So if you notice our positioning here, we're making kind of like a V formation. We have a range on either side, and we also have a melee on either side of the boss, because as you can see, this corrupted blood is pretty big. So Cutilate has to kind of stand out here, our rogue. And if you had, you know, 1 or 2 additional melee in here, you can see how it can get pretty cluttered, especially how corrupted blood will jump to other targets who are caught in the circle. So what we're doing here is we're making kind of like a V-shaped formation, and we're taking them in this alcove. That's like the best way to start this fight. Again, depends on your composition. The next thing about this fight that tanks need to be aware of is this piercing barb. This piercing barb is not physical damage, it is shadow damage. So you need to mitigate this using just cooldowns, or make sure you're healthy. So it's not going to ever really kill you if we watch it go off here. It's actually going to chunk me down a little bit. I do have Incarn rolling, so I had a pretty big absorb. It's typically going to do about, on a 4 to 5 week, it's going to do about 40 to 50% of my health pool. Using a bark skin, making sure you have like frenzied regens ready. Obviously other classes, you're going to use your toolkit properly. As like a brewmaster monk, you can either pre-CB this celestial brew, or you can just follow it up with this celestial brew, since the damage will be staggered. Obviously other tanks, I'm not going to go into every detail, but like typically you don't need a big DR for each one. In this case, I had Incarnation rolling, so I was going to be pretty healthy with that absorb shield. As you can see here, this ad spawns This is what I'm talking about. So the ad spawns, it instantly just goes on me and starts hitting me. Dave runs over our Windwalker Monk and he starts mailing these because ads on this fight have to die ASAP. What a lot of people think is that you can just tunnel boss and ads will fixate, and if you can heal through the melee damage, which is not really the scary part about this, you're probably going to be fine. That Blood Nova that they cast does insane damage. Luckily, I think this reset that just happened, or last week, I can't remember exactly. Weeks are getting away from me. They were nerfed by 20% the damage. So you don't have to worry about it as much, but it's still the priority to kill them as soon as they spawn. I kind of got clipped on the wall there, but another piercing barb came out. So when you first start the fight, it depends on his energy, actually. He'll cast up to 3 piercing barbs between each blood barrier. Now, while his blood barrier is active, he is going to be gaining energy still. So if it takes you a lot longer to get the blood barrier down, your group's going to be taking more damage, but your tank's going to be taking less damage. So that's just something to keep in mind. Is sometimes if you're low on tank defensives, it's not actually a bad idea to like let the blood barrier sit up. It does do a little bit of ticking damage for your group, but like if your tank doesn't have any way to mitigate it, especially on tyrannical weeks, sometimes it's okay to let the blood barrier be up for a little bit longer. Again, same thing here. Like these ads are spawning and they see me first, and they typically are like going towards me. And then after they do a Blood Nova or two, then they might swap targets. So the one thing I didn't do properly here is as soon as an ad dies, they leave this giant pool on the ground. It's kind of hard to see. I don't know why the video quality is not the greatest, but I'll have to fix that in my OBS recording. Anyways, when this pool spawns, Hakkar should be being moved, because when he does Blood Barrier, you don't want like any negative space. You don't want any pools on the ground underneath him, so melee can still keep uptime, especially when there's storming spawning as well. So a third ad just came in. It's fixating. I didn't see who it was fixing. I think it was fixating our hunter over here. The pool's going to drop, and then Blood Barrage is going to go out, or blood during Blood Barrier. So you just want to break that as fast as possible. That's typically the first phase. And then once you break that shield, you're entering phase 2, and or I guess that is phase 2, and then this is phase 1 again. However you want to look at it. His energy is low enough. It's sub 30, and if his energy is sub 30, he's going to cast 3 piercing barbs before he goes back into a Blood Barrier. What happens in high tyrannical keys is that his blood barrier is going to be up longer, and he's going to gain more energy while his blood barrier is active, or his blood barrage is active, and he's typically going to come out with more energy, and that's when you need to keep focusing on ads. So we're going to get 1 more ad spawn. You're only ever going to get 4, and they're going to keep respawning. So as soon as the blood pools fully shrink is when the ads respawn. And that's why it's really important to kill ads. Now, this was a fortified week, and if you saw like in our first push, we got him all the way down to like 25% or something like that. Pretty crazy. So what we're doing here is we're honestly calling for a tunnel. The 4th ad just spawned, and on any tyrannical week, or if you don't have DPS who are pulling 12 11k, you know, like really good damage, you need to swap to ads to make sure they're dying, because this Blood Nova, when there's like even just 2 ads up, it's going to be insane damage on your group, and not many healers can actually heal through this consistently for a long period of time because of how like healers work with stacked healing. Like shamans really want people to be stacked, rest of the druids really want things to be stacked. Arguably almost any other healer wants stacked tight groups, because like chain heal, your like barriers, your links, your F-lows, your healing rains, your light of dawns, like, and when there's AoE damage, when everyone's spread out, it's just going to become overwhelming. And I think actually just before this key, we failed a 19 because we thought we can go for the kill, and ended up Blood Nova killed us all. And then as soon as ads die, you're just pulling the boss slightly back. What I like to do is I kind of make a V, like not a V shape. I make like a diamond around the room. So I'll start here at the entrance, or where the boss spawns. I'll move him to either side. It really depends on, like in this case, it was storming, and I just kind of shifted around this way. So I take him away from the blood pools, and then once ads are dying kind of in melee here, I'll drag him to the entrance of the room. And then again, when they die here, I'm dragging him to the far side. So that's kind of the way that you want to tank this boss, and where you want to tank him exactly. Now again, this is a boss you either race or you control. You don't do this kind of like constantly tunnel. Like I failed a lot of keys because like we're like, we'll just tunnel the boss, and then he'll throw up another blood barrier. There's 4 ads alive, and there's just so much AoE damage that our healer can't keep us alive, because they have to heal like a ridiculous number, or a ridiculous amount of HPS. This boss is going to go down pretty quick, but because again, prideful, the tank positioning, as well as having hero and just like really good burst damage. This comp is pretty solid outside of like the shaman healer is obviously really good, but maybe like a melee healer would be a little bit better because of physical damage. Outside of that though, that's how this boss should be tanked. Again, Piercing Barb. It's dangerous enough on top of melee and other magical damages coming out during the fight, but again, just like make sure you have either like you're topped off before it happens, or use a small DR or a big DR depending on where you are at in your DR rotation. So that's pretty much it. So again, the biggest reminder is that it's either a race or it's a marathon. It's never going to be an in-between. So once ads are spawning like this, we have 4 up. This is not good. You could see that we're like, even at 3% health, like we're getting chunked pretty fast here. Getting down already to half health. I'm getting to half because of that. So in just like 4 seconds, we all got dipped down to half health just because there was 4 ads up. So much longer, or if a blood barrier activated, we probably actually would have wiped on this pull. So I hope this guide helps. It's pretty straightforward. You guys suggested a lot of, like basically all of the bosses on the other side. So I'll probably stick to the other side, just get this out of the way. And then like, I definitely saw the comments where, I think like some Plaguefall bosses, we had some bosses from Necrotic Wake as well. So I'm going to cover all those in the future. So keep an eye out for those. I'm going to try to get these down actually pretty fast. So hope you guys enjoyed. If you liked it, obviously hit that like button, hit that subscribe button if you enjoyed content like this. And I will catch you all in the next one. Take care.